In a company like Google, how are you looking at hiring?
You're doing big AI projects or you are going to big corporates, it's not about heroic efforts. One person cannot win. A team wins together. You might be the sharpest technical guy, but you also look at
What percentage of the time engineers should spend in front of their screen coding versus spending time with their users? And his answer was 50%. Sundar said that 25% of Google's entire code is now being generated by AI. What does that mean? That means that 25% of the coders you had, do they still have a job?
an average person can code well, but where is that acumen of how to build AI solution? It's not like, oh, I generate a fantastic image. That is not solving a business problem. The business problem is that where is the ROI?
For instance, in Amazon, we have thousands of operations people, right? So we always have goals on like how we can kind of reduce those operations people and use AI to kind of reduce the cost. Now, when that happens,
Work-life balance is a myth. If you're putting something to achieve something greater, then 70 hours a week doesn't hurt.
So Vishal, let's start with you. Do you think international AI regulation is realistic?
not that realistic because every country and every would have their own nuances, right? So, for instance, if you think about the applications that we are currently have in India, may or may not be there in the US and vice versa. For instance, we have a lot of local languages, right? There are the kind of content that we have, or kind of platforms that we have. They may or may not be relevant. So, I think what we need to have is, and I think someone said that, okay, agree and disagree both, is that there will be certain frameworks, there will be overarching frameworks that will be there at an international level, but it has to be customized for that particular country and for that particular use case for that matter.
So Tushar, question to you. Will coding become irrelevant with tools like ChatGPT?
It's a very interesting question. So I am from Google and we also use Gemini, by the way. We also use Gemini to nurture our codes. Let me be pretty honest, because see, at the end, what matters is productivity. It's not heroic effort, right? So how much you learn, you want to be the best coder of the world. Yeah, we know that we also hire from IITs, but it takes time, right? So the question about getting irrelevancy in 3 years, I think it's not possible because being working in Google type of companies, right? So you can talk about small scale startup probably, yes, but when you're in big traditional companies, you already have a lot of ecosystem of your existing applications and that legacy knowledge would be there. So I think in 3 years time, we will gain a 50% sort of efficiency in terms of how we code versus being completely irrelevant. My hypothesis is also that the good developers will always exist and AI will be assistive and augmented technology for years to come before it fully takes over. So when I'm talking about duration, it might be somewhere between 5 to 10 years timeline, but I still don't think the 100% replacement of AI as a developer or coding everything up.
Okay. So Anand, we want to know what's your take on this. Will AI truly create more job than it eliminates?
More value creation is going to happen. The answers are going to be different on the kind of industries and companies that you're talking about. In general, work that is repetitive, manual in nature will get automated through AI. But there would be a lot of new kinds of jobs where you use AI for new kind of value creation. So there are going to be some industries where the net impact is going to be that more efficiencies will come in. But there are going to be a lot of new industries that will get created where the net impact will be positive.
Anand, if I may add one more perspective, every time a new technology comes in, right? So we always see there is a dip because the dip is because of the transition to the new tech world, right? I'll give you a very small example, right? So maybe in 1970s when there was horse carriages, right? So when Ford introduced his first motor car, everybody thought that they will go out of jobs because yeah, we don't need horses. You barely need, instead of 2 horses, you just need one motor car, etc. But that industry has revolutionized in the long run, right? In terms of creating jobs, factories, roads, I feel that AI is no different to that. While some of these things will shed away, as Anand was mentioning, there's a lot of value creation will happen. The human intelligence augmented with AI will create a lot of things. Maybe we are into the space race. Who knows that how long we will be a species in the earth will extinct, right? So that that's sort of innovation would be much more important. Will create a much larger industry.
So, Raghav, as someone who's focused on the workforce of the future, what's your take on the 70-hour work week debate?
So, hi guys. Hope all of you are doing well. So, if you have heard of Sam Altman, the founder of OpenAI, he said a very interesting thing that we are moving in the age of abundance. What that means is that the tools at our disposal that we are using to solve problems, they are getting so smart that the amount of work we need to do keeps going down. For example, a very small example is a copywriter, person who's working in the marketing department. Earlier in our company, a copywriter needed to work for 9 to 10 hours on an average, 8, 9 hours on an average. Today, more than 3 hours, they don't have work. And it's not as if that those 3 hours are easy. So, as a human being, it will not be about 70 hours, 50 hours, 20 hours, or 100 hours. It will be about the quality of the work you do. So, I don't want to quantify that will it be 100 hours or 70 hours. Now, there's another way of looking at it. We are moving towards a hyper competitive world. So, on one side, technical jobs, which most of you will be doing, they will not require 70 hours of work. But on the other side, if all of you or some of you have entrepreneurial pursuits, or some of you have bigger aspirations in life, then your effort will need to be much more than what is the competition. Because the competition is getting ruthless, more and more people are getting access to internet. And earlier, if you were from a bigger city or you had access to money, access to education, new English, you were already at a very big advantage. That advantage is going away. Now, there will not be much difference between you and any average person in India. So, from that angle, the amount of work you do should be higher, but technical job roles, personally, according to me, should require lesser work. What do you guys think about that?
My perspective on the work-life balance. First of all, disclaimer: I'm workaholic, so please take it with a grain of salt. So my perspective on work-life balance is a myth, right? If you're passionate, you're putting something to achieve something greater, then 70 hours a week doesn't hurt. If you have higher aspirations, you want to do good, you want to upskill yourself and you want to learn, you want to be a differentiator, sometimes you have to put little extra effort, right? So input is directly equivalent to output, and the output quality and the input quality does matter here. So make a call for yourself. I would rather say that it's harder to crib about work-life balance versus being more positive about what that outcome is bringing for you and your career. If you are happy with 40 hours a week, you are happy with the accomplishment, you want to stay as you go, and that's fine. And 70 hours a week is not consistent, right? So, sometimes, it goes down, sometimes it goes up, right? So, versus look at what you're going to do and how you're upscaling yourself. So then rest all should be fine.
And just to add to what Tushar is saying, right? It's about the mindset. So I think when Narayan Murthy said 70 hours work week, I think he was talking about the mindset. The mindset should be that I should not run away from work. But now if it takes 30 hours, if it takes 100 hours, that's subjective.
Correct.
You got to work hard, basically, right?
Because if you think about it, and I can say the group that we have, the economy that we are in, a knowledge economy, right? It's not a labor economy. It's not like, okay, you work for like 8 hours or 9 hours and that's how you got paid. You are getting paid for the work that you do and the knowledge that you get. Now, if that takes 30 hours, if it takes 100 hours, that's fine. Now, how you do it, you'll get the same pay. But what might happen is you might do 30 hours your work, but you remaining 40 hours you're upskilling. So that's what you might be doing. So I think that we should not be overly sensitive to the fact that what people are saying. I think the context might be, like Raghav said, would be very different.
Now, let's get into the heart of the discussion today, which is generative AI. So, everyone knows it's moving from hype to real world applications and it's shaping industries in a way that none of us ever imagined. So, Tushar, from your perspective at Google Cloud, what is the most impactful real world use case of generative AI that you have seen?
So we are one of the largest LLM or Gen AI, and when we build some of this product, using in-house is as important as it goes to our customers, right? Meaning that when we have our existing old applications, we try to see that first of all, how we can leverage Gen AI in this existing architecture than dreaming up something really new, right? For example, I'll give you several examples, right? So, for example, in our legal workflows, right? So when we sell something at Google, right? So we write massive contracts, and those contracts are sometimes millions of dollars. So when I'm telling millions of dollars, they're tens of millions of dollars, right? The contracts are ultra complex, maybe 100 pages worth. And you know all the legal languages hold its special meaning, right? An and or a or can make a very big difference on the liability that you have. These were very, very human driven in the past, and lawyers are most expensive in the US, plus the back office job that goes in, plus the latency of the deal that has to be done. So this is one of the areas that we have used heavily Gen AI, where every time there is a deal negotiation going on, our Gen AI can understand what the impacts are, what the change clause can do, what are the nearest clause that we could propose, and how do we accelerate some of these deals. So some of this deal life cycle has come down from 30 days to merely a day or by our Gen AI solution.
Tushar, I have a question, right?
Yes.
So, Sundar, he said that 25% of Google's entire code is now being generated by AI. I am just trying to understand, and for most of us here, what does that mean? That means that 25% of
Correct.
the coders you had,
Yes.
do they still have a job?
They still have a job, right?
What are they doing?
Correct. So around that 20-25% ballpark number is about right. But at this point of time, like for example, year over year, we had to have accelerated hiring. That has come down, right? So, and the quality of coding has increased quite a lot. I'll tell you that it's not like you write a prompt and your code automatically generates well. You also have to give a lot of code context in terms of generating the right quality of code. Meaning that if I am embedding Gen AI in our existing application, I first have to prompt Gen AI that what is my existing code base and then what I'm trying to accomplish. Then only you can get 90-95% of the relevant subsequent codes which still needs to go through human eye, right? So that's where the 20-25% comes in, and we are leveraging it in every workflow that we have, right? There are some things that we're building bottoms up, but the question is, right, so how do we modernize our traditional application? Because the business must go on, right? So if I say that, hey, sales team, wait for 5 years, I'll give you a fantastic AI application, they will say that get lost, right? So we have a business to run, right? So, but if we say them that, look, every day that you're coming, you're trying to find out the right leads, you're spending 3 hours a day before you get into a job. What about I change it to 3 minutes? You come here, you see what are the most prospective deals, which has 90% plus conversion ratio, and you act on them. And I'll also summarize what has happened on those deals, right? Or I'll also suggest the next best action, that how you can close the deals. So those kind of augmentations are catching fire because the business must continue, right? So in my role, mostly we are modernizing our application, finding opportunity. I think here in this forum, we have talked through other leaders that how automation is a game, where we are seeing that there's redundancy, where people are spending more time, and how do we automate some of these things with a 90+% accuracy.
So, like just to summarize what you said, right? On one side, the quality of work that is expected, that is going up. So a lot of you, how many of you ever worked in a TCS, Infosys, Wipro, Cognizant? Anyone have? A lot of you, right? And did a lot of you get mass hiring done at campus level? Yeah? I think those jobs are not going to be there, personally. I think the quality of the jobs, that is very, very important. And at a more business level, you are saying right now AI is used for efficiency. That is the core use case, right?
That is the core use case, and I'm so glad you have chose a course that has got a runway of 10, 15, 20 years. I don't know, But that becomes a very important factor, because as on we talked about the coding automation and other things happen, then an average person can code well, but where is that acumen of how to build AI solution? And not just building AI solution. It's not like, oh, I generate a fantastic image. That is not solving a business problem, right? The business problem is that where is the ROI, right? So from where do we miss from a buzzword of AI to actually leveraging it as a core business? AI is a person, an assistant in your existing workflow. And that's what we are seeing at that point of time, this point of time, where we're deeply focused about looking at our business workflows, seeing the inefficiencies, and making sure that those processes are automated so that our people can focus on their core job. Meaning that if a sales rep is doing all this analysis, he's actually not doing the core job. He should be in the field hunting and getting the deals.
So I have a question for all three of you on this, right? So there was a report that came from Sequoia. Have you guys heard of this investor? Yeah. So they had this report called the $600 billion question. What that report said was that till now, there has been an investment of $600 billion by big tech companies on AI. Now, what is the ROI on that? Because you can invest, it sounds cool, you can do a very big show and say, these are my developments. But how is it contributing to your top line and your bottom line? And I think all of you, whichever company you work in, whichever company you go to, you need to realize that how can AI drive revenue or profit? So to all three of you, and starting from you, you have worked in Amazon and now you're working at Best Buy. So for those of you who don't know, Best Buy is one of the top retailers in the US. How does a retailer look at AI from a profitability and revenue viewpoint?
So I'll tell you like how the process of project in AI project happens, right? So when you say talk about an AI project, you first start from like what is the business value, right? You don't start from the fact that I need to do an AI project, right? You start from a fact that, okay, I need to generate more revenue, but I want to reduce the cost. If you want to generate more revenue, you need to get either more customers or the same customers need to purchase more. If you want to reduce costs, you want to do more versus either in the same people, or you need to reduce your people using AI. And then you say that we've talked about a problem. Like for instance, in Amazon, we have thousands of operations people, right? So we always have goals on like how we can kind of reduce those operations people and use AI to kind of reduce the cost. When that happens, the clear idea is that right now, my cost is this, which is my operations people or whatever that I'm spending right now. The AI application would have this kind of an accuracy. This will be the time that it will take, and this is the ROI that it will generate. So at the end of the day, it's a very business problem. It's not a tech problem. Tech is an enabler. But at the end of the day, we are solving a business problem using tech. So that's how the idea is.
So guys, just seconding what he's saying, right? The real innovation on AI, if you personally ask me, is happening in 3 or 4 companies in the world. Most companies are all about enablement, all about how do they use AI before their competitors, and how do they fine-tune AI before their competitors so that customers get a better experience and they can make more money in a very simple, crude manner. So you get interviewed by any company, you work for any company, in all likelihood, you need to understand how can AI make more money for them. It's very good to talk about innovation, but that doesn't happen in such a normal manner. What really happens, what really drives businesses, what really drives job roles, which you guys want, is the ROI, is how can the customer have a better experience, how can we be better than our competitors. So Anand, what do you have to say about that?
And if I can add to what I said, right? I mean, there are AI research companies and the big tech guys are doing fundamental research on, building fundamental products for AI. But then there are applied AI roles, which companies like, let's say, Swiggy, Flipkart, TVS, and I think roles like yours and mine is how do you create value using these fundamental products that have come from companies like Google, OpenAI, etc. And I think that's where I think going back to the original question around if people are losing jobs, what are they going to do? And I think a lot of the time that you save from AI having done the repetitive work for you and the automation for you, if you use that time for finding the product market fit, understand the problem statement, do value creation, that's the sweet spot of for a lot of applied AI engineers, a lot of applied AI data scientists.
Anand, just to understand, right? So for those of you who don't know, I'll just recalibrate. Anand is currently at TVS, where he's heading analytics AI of the engineering function. TVS, you guys have heard of TVS? Yeah. Now my question is, why would a company like TVS need AI engineering, like around what? Because guys, a lot of new jobs that will be created for people like you will not be with an Google or an Amazon. It will be with traditional companies that want to become a technology company. So how does it work at a company like TVS?
Sure. So I'll take examples of, let's take automotive, right? So if you guys ride a Bajaj bike or a Honda Activa or a Pulsar or a TVS bike, you guys want a safe bike. You guys need a bike that looks good. You guys need a bike where the cost of maintenance is low, right? So now companies like us need to use AI and automation to make sure the cost of manufacturing is low. We need to use AI to make sure the quality and reliability of our engines is high, right? We need to be able to ensure that the service that we provide to your bike when you take it to a workshop uses AI to make sure when you take the vehicle out in the evening, it works really well and you don't have to come back before a year, right? So that's where these are specific examples around automotive, right? Are examples where you are using AI that comes from Amazon or a Google or a Microsoft, but then you are using it to solve customer experience problems, quality problems, TCO reduction problems, etc.
Perfect. I think coming from that only, one thing that is becoming very clear is that, guys, we need leaders now, because most of the people that you see in the workforce will be followers of what they read, but every company will need thinkers. So now, Tushar, coming to you on this, right? In a company like Google, how are you looking at hiring?
I think for the Google hiring process is very different, right? So technical skills are one aspect of our hiring process. We also look at the team fit, the cultural aspect of it, right? And the cognitive function of the person, right? So meaning that, are you able to come out of a solution in a win-win way through a cognitive approach? Those questions are no right and wrong answers, but the answers are basically, how do you approach a problem? How do you solve a problem? If your answer is pretty destructive, right? So you might solve the problem. It's not about the what, it's about the how, right? That's the cognitive function you should focus on. That, when we are doing big AI projects or you are going to big corporates, it's not about heroic efforts. One person cannot win. A team wins together. You might be the sharpest technical guy, but because of the culture or because of the misfit, you might create the largest destruction within the team. So those are some of these things that we take pretty much into account. If I only talk about technical, we are also looking at AI as a full stack engineer, right? So earlier we used to only hire ML or data scientists. Those specific skill sets were there, but in the revolution of Gen AI and advancements, we actually talk to our engineers that, whether like front end, back end, do they have any ML or AI skills? That's getting a new norm of, being called as a full stack engineer.
So I think what Anand said, what you said, one thing that we heard is full stack, right? Right now in the world of Gen AI, a lot of job roles will be combined, and the term that they will use to call a group of job roles will be something like full stack. Now, this is my question to you guys, because I am not a techie myself. To be a full stack person, a full stack engineer, a full stack scientist, or whatever you call it, context is the most important thing, right? How do you get context? So a lot of our friends here, right, they are interviewing with certain companies. They want to go to a certain company, or they might be working in a certain company. How would you all three recommend, and you can start, how should someone get better context of the company they are in, the department they are in, and then the job function they are in.
So firstly, I think obviously technical, I'm assuming, is taken care of, because that, if you're going for a technical role, that is something which is a bare minimum, right? Now, and I'll tell you, like, when we've done the hiring, what was interesting is, like, when we, after the technical round, we used to have like about, for every 10 profiles, we would have like 50% success rate. Suddenly, when people go on to the next rounds, our success rate from that will become maybe anywhere between 5 to 10%. The challenge is, people at times are good at, okay, this is how I want to kind of do a Python code, or this is how I want to create an ML model, or this is how I want to create a front-end application. But where struggle is, like, when you give them a business problem and say, this is the problem, now tell me, like, how will you create a solution out of it? That's where they struggle. So increasingly what will happen is, and I don't want to take the names, but the traditional IT companies, there used to be a process where they said that, okay, this is the job that you have to do, go ahead and do that job. We are now getting into a situation where we don't need so many managers. So basically you yourself have to understand, okay, this is where the gap is, this is where I have to build, and this is the business value that I'll add. So that is where what Tushar was saying, a lot of cognitive aspects come into play. Like, for instance, in Amazon hiring, that's a huge factor, right? Whether you're able to drive innovation, whether you're able to drive, if you're stuck in a problem, how you're kind of coming out of it. So yes, I think what is important is that these kind of engagements that you have, understand, not just focus on the technical aspects, but understand how they are getting deployed in the industry applications. What are some of the challenges? How those can be overcome? The more you know about that, the more you will be successful, at least getting in the interviews.
Guys, I will tell you the best hack to do that. Go on YouTube, watch podcast, watch interviews, because when you hear it from the horse's mouth, right? If you want to understand what Google is doing, you hear what Sundar is saying. If you want to understand what Amazon is thinking, hear what Bezos is saying. What that will give you is a macro, high-level picture of how that organization is thinking forward. Now, that may or may not give you actionable insights, but when you talk to your manager or when you talk to a hiring manager, they will see that you are aligning with how the company is thinking.
So I was in one of the Microsoft events where a question, Satya Nadella actually asked this question to the CEO of Udan.com. It's a B2B market. I don't know his name. So the question that was specifically asked was, what percentage of the time engineers, techies, should spend in front of their screen coding versus spending time with their users? And his answer was 50%. So imagine if, engineers in Amazon who are building warehouse management solutions to improve warehouse productivity, unless they go and work as a warehouse worker for a day or two inside the warehouse to understand how warehousing, pick, pack, and ship happens, if you understand that, then your ability to build a relevant solution is probably 10x more than if you are an Amazon engineer and you have never gone to a warehouse. So in Japanese term, that's called Gemba. Basically learning at workplace, observing at workplace, looking at the users of your solution, and that's very important in our opinion.
Now, for all of you, right, like a lot of us here aspire to be in positions in which you guys are. So, want to understand from your personal journey. So, what I want to know, and I think everyone wants to know, is that from your journey, where do you think were certain things you did good and certain things you thought you could do better? And I would probably say things that you think you can do better are the ones that will actually give better insights, because I think our failures teach us more than our successes. So yes, I think over to all three of you, and I will cross question you on that. From your journey, what were some common things that worked for you that these guys can take, and some learnings that you wish you knew before? Tushar?
Yeah, so I did my engineering in electronics and instrumentation, right? So before coming to, back in 22 years back, some of the key decisions that I made is to understand what is the game ahead, right? So where is the career progression might have. I think I feel that you all have made some smart decisions here. From here on, how you execute that matters. but at least you are in a game of AI, right? So you are in the right path. So I quickly realized that that my core jobs were not sufficient in India, that didn't pay well, and I wanted to move to the technical side of it. So one of the key decisions that I have made during that time, like after spending 2 or 3 years in a core business, that moving to the tech sector. I think that I'll tell you that it's a good and bad decision because I was little too late. A good decision is that I was able to acquire some industry knowledge that I could apply on my software engineering, kind of career skills. So those were one of the pivotal things, right? So at that time, I recognized that that was an age of traditional ERP applications, right? So every company must need a finance system, supply chain system, or it was like SAP or Oracle kind of software were everywhere, right? Salesforce came a little late, and I knew that there is a run rate of 10, 15 years, and if I could grab that, I was always passionate about business being in a manufacturing industry. So that played really well for me, and kind of starting up my career, which was the top-notch skill and the highest paid skill, and I had a run rate. But similarly, 10, 15 years down the line, the supply-demand ratio always changes. I suddenly saw that there is a lot of supply-demand ratio. These are becoming legacy applications. The way it is built, that I need to play a different mindset game. So I went through a lot of upskilling myself, took startup jobs. I'll tell you, it was extremely hard being a leader who probably potentially doesn't have 100% experience in that area, but maybe 50%, but with a lot of commitment and eagerness to sort of upskill to be in the relevancy for the next 5, 10 years. So those are some of these decisions that I've taken. Even if you ask me, the AI game that I am in, maybe probably potentially last 4, 5 years, where I've started realizing what AI can do. Even though I was in Google, I didn't build the YouTube ad system and all those things, right? So, but when I was Waymo, which was Google's self-driving technology entity, you can look up me on LinkedIn. So the ex-CIO of Waymo, where our cars drive itself. Now we are doing a lot of taxi hailing services. Then I realized that maybe 2017 when I joined, I realized that what AI can potentially do, right? Maybe whatever solution that we're doing is sort of augmental, but putting lives in the car is a whole different ballgame. You cannot be wrong, right? So, and that is proven hugely right now. That inspired me quite a lot. I wanted to make sure that during that time itself that I need to upskill quite a lot. I need to understand how it works, and here I am, that consistent effort, right? So there are some incidents happened where I am ahead or I'm behind, but seeing that foresight and investing in yourself will definitely keep you ahead of the game.
And what about you?
Yeah, I'll agree with almost everything that you said. I mean, see what has worked for me. I mean, I'll share a little bit about my background. I actually grew up in this city. My 10th, my 12th, even my engineering is from MBM Engineering College, which is a government engineering college here. I didn't start with a English medium school, although I went to English medium school, but English medium schools in Jodhpur generally speak in Hindi. So whatever I have learned so far is largely what Tushar said, is about your own personal hunger, your own personal curiosity. Now, curiosity, once you have curiosity, that's when, curiosity, less ego, be willing to bend and work with people from whom you can learn. Because many years back, there wasn't YouTube per se, right? I mean, YouTube or all the MOOCs of the world. So the hunger to not have ego and learn. Because generally what happens is, in the first 3, 4 years of your career, you don't have ego. But as you become the first, mid-level manager, your ego starts building up. So my request is, don't have ego when it comes to your own personal learning. No job is beneath you. I think there's a famous saying by the CEO of NVIDIA, right? No job is beneath you. If it is giving you learning now or for future, don't have ego in what you want to learn. And once you have curiosity and less ego, you learn from your colleagues, you learn from your colleagues, which is outside your ecosystem, which is internet. So that is, as long as that hunger is there, all of us will do well, right? In terms of what has not worked well for me. So as I started growing in my career, and specifically in the last 3 years, I took up a broader role where 3 years back I used to lead like a 50-60 member team of leading data science and data engineering. Then all of a sudden I was given a role of leading product engineering and software engineering. So all of a sudden like a 400 member team. Perhaps I should not have taken that role, because if you take a really big role, then you lose focus, right? And if I apply that to your work, it's not, in my case, it was about taking up a really large role. In your case could be, are you trying to do too many things at the same time, right? And you might not be able to excel at a few of them. So focus and prioritize and pick up things, become a master at it, as against trying to learn 5-6 things at the same time. I think that, I think everybody said we are in knowledge economy. People respect experts, and expertise not just technically, but expertise in your domain. And you don't get expertise unless you spend time in one particular problem for a long time. That's why a lot of people do PhDs, etc. Right? So that's my insight.
I think that was very useful. One key takeaway, which I agree with what he's saying, don't have ego. I'll tell you one very honest fact. You talk to someone who's 17 right now, who is coding on GitHub, who's researching on AI tools, I can guarantee you they will know 5 times more about AI than you. And the only way you can learn from them is by not having ego. So that I think I personally really resonate with that thought process. Don't have ego. And the second part is when he said focus. When you think of AI, when you think of whatever is happening, when you go on Instagram, you see XYZ is making XYZ money, doing this, that. I think a lot of things are distraction. You know your strengths, whatever those are, just play to them.
Okay. So I've had a sort of an interesting journey myself. So I've changed tracks a lot. So when I started off, it was an application developer role. I was not liking it. I thought that I'm doing coding, but I'm not connecting with the business, what impact it's creating, right? So that let me do an MBA. I think I'll be closer to the business. I started sales, and then I was like, sales is fun, but I think I need to do problem. My analytical mindset is not getting challenged, right? And then I went into consulting. I think one of the things that consulting helped me is it helps you kind of adapt to change very quickly, right? So you move into very different projects, the context changes so quickly, but then you all still have to ensure that you are up and running very quickly, right? So those, and then insist on high standards of work was another thing that I learned during consulting. I guess this is something I've seen even in organizations. You'll always find people who are doing work. It's okay work, bare minimum work. But I think somewhere consulting at least makes sure that there is a high bar. And so once I moved out of consulting, I tried to make sure that I continue to kind of insist on high bars, right? So make sure that the quality of work is always high. And either me or my team are able to kind of stand out from the rest. And then during the career, and I'm sure all of us kind of saw that change, right? I think you guys are seeing that change right now, but we've seen a lot of changes happening even the last 10, 15 years, right? The technologies have changed. There was SAS, there was R, there was Python, and so on and so forth, right? SPSS, right? So I think what, at least for our generation, we've one of the things that we did was like very adaptive to change, right? If something is coming, we have to make sure, even when we are leading teams, we have to kind of be closer to understand that what's happening. You just can't speak at a 10,000 or 30,000 feet level, right? You yourself have to know that, okay, what's happening and what are the intricacies for it, right? The other aspects which I felt from a learning perspective, like you yourself can learn as much, but then you should always have your eyes and ears open. Like in an organization, there would be like 50 or 100 projects that would be happening. So how do you kind of speak to people and say, hey, what are you working on? What is the challenge you're facing? How are you solving this problem? And that is where perhaps it might give you new ideas to say that how you can solve a problem that you are working on or something that you can do, right? So those are a few things that I have done, or maybe I have also tried to do right now what I'm doing. And hopefully others can also do.
Perfect. I think This was a superb way to come to the end of this segment.
Can I take
Sure, please.
So, one of the things I learned from some of my teachers, especially in
Data science is that uh, if you are from a maths background, then most likely you would have focused on calculus, matrix algebra, probabilities when you were in standard 10th and 12th. But I can guarantee, including myself, we didn't focus, right? Um, uh, and if you are not from that background, then you should. Some of the fundamentals of AI lies in these three mathematical concepts. And if you don't focus on these three areas of mathematics, it's there are really good videos, Sal Khan, etc. So get your concepts right on these 3-4 areas. I'm missing a few, and that really helps. How does, let's say, an automated speech recognition really work? If you understand that as against just using it, not everybody is going to work in an AI research company, but if you really understand the inner workings, they're all tied to mathematics, right? So I think that's one of the things that I've learned from my teachers in the past.
Maybe I can just add one more thing. I think the panel here has added a lot of valuable input. Everything is valid. I experienced those myself. Two more things I will add, or rather emphasize, right, when you're going for interviews or reading through the course. First of all, have a product mindset, not the technical mindset. Technical mindset, by default, you'll get it. You'll learn about AI. The product mindset is that what business problem is solving. I think all three, including Raghav, kind of raised it, that a real business problem where AI can be a differentiator, ROI-driven output, that you need to get into the business shoes, understand you're solving the problem. The second big thing that we realized, even though you know the problem, do you have a user experience mindset, right? Because are you building an AI solution that people don't know how to use it? The usability aspect of UI. I'll give you a very good example. We build a fantastic AI agent, but our real agent has to click 3 places to find where that AI agent is. Useless. Now we augment with the time they're talking to a customer, we display a card immediately right in front of their eyes. So AI becomes immediately usable, not just usable, but getting feedback real time also for reinforced learning. So some of these things have that mindset. If I create something every day, I'll tell you how we are changing the mindset at Google. Yeah, this has worked for 10 years, but I'm going to challenge the status quo. At least start thinking, can AI do this? And if it can do it, how? And how I would enable my users.
So as one thing you observe, right? These three leaders are leading very, very big teams, have worked in the biggest organizations. But when they speak, they have that inquisitiveness. When they speak, they don't act as if they know it all. And I think that is going to be the most important thing for all of us, especially for you guys, because what will happen is that once your degree is done, you will automatically know 3-4 extra things as opposed to the general crowd. But that should just be the starting point. That should not be the end point that I know it all. Because even if this degree grants you those 2 or 3 things, if you don't be up to speed, 3, 4, 6 months, you're out. So just learn that common thing from all of these folks, that be extremely curious, be always open to learn, and again repeating what Anand had said, don't have ego in learning from anyone.